بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So we continue on with the fiqh of Hajj, and we were at what you should do as soon as you enter Mecca. Again, assuming that you are doing Hajj al-Ifrad, meaning the singular Hajj. You're only doing Hajj, you're not doing Umrah or anything else. You're just doing Hajj. So he says that فإذا دخل مكة, as soon as you enter Mecca, ابتدأ بالمسجد الحرام. You'll begin with, of course, the Masjid al-Haram, right? Now, as I mentioned last week as well, that if you get to Mecca and you're exhausted, you're tired, then make sure you go eat, go drink something, make sure you go and rest if necessary. If you have time, then make sure you do all of those things, and then you can come and go inside the Kaaba. But if you're exhausted, then that doesn't really help anybody, right? You start your Hajj, for example, or you start your Tawaf, for example, and you're exhausted. So it doesn't really benefit much, right? So فإذا عاين البيت كبر وهلل. So once you see the Baytullah, you'll do your takbir and you'll do your tahleel. Actually, I think we did this. Oops. Okay, oh my bad. I think I was looking at the previous lesson. Okay. There we go. وإذا كان قبل يوم التروية بيوم خطب الإمام خطبة. All right, so now we're starting on the 7th day. He's saying Yom al-Tarwiyah is the 8th day. So he's saying when you're on the day before Yom al-Tarwiyah, which is the 7th day of Dhul Hijjah. Remember, we're going through the days of Dhul Hijjah, right? خطب الإمام خطبة. The Imam will give a khutbah. Now, generally, this is still happening till today. That the Imam of Hajj, he will give a khutbah. Generally, it's done after Dhuhr, right? يعلم الناس فيها الخروج إلى منى. And in this khutbah, he will teach the people regarding going towards Mina. He'll teach them the ahkam of going towards Mina. وَالصَّلَاةَ بِعَرَفَاتٍ, and also praying salah in Arafat. وَالْوُقُوفِ وَالْإِفَاضَةِ, and also regarding wuquf in Arafah, and also ifada, meaning tawaf al-ifada, meaning which is the last tawaf that you'll do as well, right? And so in that khutbah on the 7th, he'll talk about all of this. Now, most of us, we have an understanding of what's going on. Most of us, we may not even understand the khutbah. They do translate it, but they have translations. But anyways, even if you don't understand it, it's not a big deal. But this is something which is sunnah, it should happen. فإذا صلى الفجر يوم التروية بمكة خرج إلى. So now that's the 7th. 7th day, you're just preparing, right? So most people, they are in Mecca by the 7th. 7th is like the latest. Most people, they're there by 7th, and they know that next day we're going to go to Mina. So once you pray Fajr on the 8th day in Mecca, so visualize, let's go through it, right? In the process, right? On the 8th day, you're in Mecca, you pray Fajr. After Fajr, you get ready, وخرج إلى منى, and then you leave to go to Mina. وأقام بها حتى يصلي الفجر يوم عرفة. You'll stay there until the next Fajr, basically. You'll stay in Mina until the next Fajr. So generally what happens is you go to your hotel, you're relaxing there, you shower, whatever you need to, you clean up, and you wear your ihram, for example. You wear your ihram, you get into the state of ihram, and then and you don't need to leave to go to Masjid, Masjid Aisha or anything like that. You don't need to go anywhere to enter into the state of ihram, but rather you can enter into the state of ihram from your hotels. Right? You enter into the state of ihram from your hotel, from wherever, and then you'll go in your buses to Mina. Okay. So generally in our day and age, it's generally late, right? Let's be honest, it's late. You're going, sometime after Fajr, maybe 10, 11. It's not a big deal, but at some point during the day, you'll go, and after Fajr, you'll go, right? Sometimes it's a bit delayed. It's not a big deal, as you know, about maybe 2 million people or so are traveling. So it takes a lot of time, right? So you go to Mina. But you'll stay there for until the Fajr of the next day. So 8th, all you have to do is go to Mina. That's it. You wear your ihram and you go to Mina. That's all you have to do. Just 8th is just getting used to Mina. Now, those of you who've never been to Mina, obviously it's just tense. Like, it's intense. You have, for example, the size of this mimbar, for example, essentially, or the size of this musalla, basically, that's the amount of space that you have to sleep. Yes, basically, more or less. About the size of this mimbar, maybe. Something like that. That's about the size of space that you have. Maybe, and I'm short, and yet my feet would stick out outside of the bed. So anybody like Salim Bhai or somebody, you're probably on the next guy's bed, or your feet are probably on the next person, and it's okay. That's Mina. You know, that's how it is, right? You have to make sacrifices. So, or the person next to you has to make sacrifices. Your neighbor has to make sacrifices. So anyway, so you're there until the next day. Generally now you're there on the 8th. Generally, for example, the Imam, the Mufti, the scholar you go with, generally they'll have like some talks on the 8th. You know, they'll give you some encouragements, some fiqh reminders about, because everybody's there. You have nothing else to do. You're in Mina, you have nowhere else to be. You must be there. So generally, it's a good time to prepare yourself physically, mentally. Obviously, you should be prepared, but again, prepare yourself again. ثم يتوجه إلى عرفات فيقيم بها. Then after Fajr on the 9th day, this is where it's serious, right? You will go towards Arafat, right? And that's the most important part of Hajj, right? As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Al-Hajj Arafah. That Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that Hajj is Arafah, meaning you must go there. You must be in Arafah for at least some time, right? And the timing is basically after the Zawal, from the time of Zawal, meaning from the time of Dhuhr until sunset. That's the time. Sometime during that period, you must be in Arafah. If you're not in Arafah at that time, your Hajj is cancelled. Right? Your Hajj was not accepted if you're not in Arafah. Right? No matter what the reason is. So, for example, last year, there were some people in my group. Right? There was one elderly brother. He was very sick. The entire days of Hajj, or most of the days of Hajj, he was in the hospital, right? And to that extent that they had to ambulance him into Arafah, and they ambulanced him out of Arafah. Otherwise, he would have, lost so much money, right? Because he was in the hospital the entire time. But anyways, that's why my humble recommendation is do not go to Hajj alone. No matter if you're 18, no matter if you're 80. Do not go to Hajj alone, right? Doesn't matter how old or how young, how healthy you are, doesn't matter. Do not go for Hajj alone because anything can happen. You can get sick, something can happen. And if you don't have family, yes, like anyone, we can help. I can help, for example, right? But I'm not the same as a family member, right? Friends are not the same as family members. And so if a family member is with you, then it'll be easier, more comfortable for them to help you. So I highly recommend taking a family member, if not at least a friend, should go with you for Hajj. But I do not recommend, no matter if you're young, so many people that I'm young, I'm healthy, doesn't matter. I don't recommend you going alone. Anyways, so you go to Arafah, right? So فإذا زالت الشمس من يوم عرفة صلى الإمام بالناس الظهر والعصر, right? So on the after the sun declines, meaning after Zawal, on the 9th day, the Imam will pray with the people. He'll pray Dhuhr and he'll pray Asr. فيبتدئ بالخطبة أولا. So you'll start off with the khutbah. He will start off with the khutbah. فيخطب خطبتين قبل الصلاة. And he'll give 2 khutbahs before the salah. يعلم الناس فيهما الصلاة. He will teach the people in that khutbah regarding salah, والوقوف بعرفة, and also the obligation of staying in Arafah, والمزدلفة, also regarding the obligation of Muzdalifah, what you must do there, رمي الجمار, also pelting the shayateen, والنحر, sacrificing, والحلقة, and cutting your hair, وطواف الزيارة, also the last طواف, ويصلي بهم الظهر والعصر في وقت الظهر بأذان وإقامتين. Right? And he will pray with them Dhuhr and Asr in the time of Dhuhr with 1 adhan and 2 iqamah. Okay? Pray with 1 adhan and 2 iqamah in the time of Dhuhr. Okay. So now, generally, as I said, they broadcast these lectures, right? So they'll broadcast it, right? Most people, see, look, it's some people, they have this misconception. They have this misunderstanding that you must go and stand on the mountain of Arafah. Many people have this misunderstanding. They think I must go and stand on the mountain. So you'll see thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, they'll go there. It's not necessary. Now, yes, ideally you should spend some, you should sacrifice a little bit. You should stand, you should make dua to Allah Ta'ala. As the Prophet, he made dua, raising his hands so high that his armpits were visible. Right? So yes, you should stand and make dua, but you don't need to go to Arafah. Some people, meaning the mountain of Arafah, right? You can, there are boundaries of Arafah. So long as you're within those boundaries, you're in Arafah. You don't need to be directly on top of that mountain. Okay. If you see the videos, subhanAllah, it's insane. It's just a sea of people. So many people there. Right. So if you want to, inshallah, Allah will reward you for your sacrifices, but it's not necessary. Okay. So you can stay near your tent, especially people like us. We're not used to that right now, especially. It's extremely hot. It was like on average, like 100 something degrees every single day while we were there. So if you're not used to that type of heat, you may get a heat stroke. You may have to use the bathroom, for example. There may not be bathrooms nearby, and you may get very, very, very sick. So just be careful, right? You can stay in your tents, and you'll get the reward of Arafah, inshallah. Yes, especially at the time of dua, especially before sunset. Go outside and stand outside at least. That way, you get some heat and you get some sacrifices. But you don't need to stand the entire time outside. Okay. So,
question.
yes.
You mentioning the khutbah supposed to be given by Imam, but the khutbah is a necessary thing, or you don't. Some people think that you have to go to that masjid where the Imam al Hajj giving khutbah.
Yeah.
So the khutbah part is not necessary, right? So waquf is important, or
Waquf is necessary. Listening to the khutbah is not necessary. Unlike the khutbah of Jum'ah, khutbah of Jum'ah is wajib, right? You must listen to it, right? You must be silent and all that, right? But khutbah of Arafah is not necessary. You know what I mean?
These days you are in your camp, right? So which khutbah you're talking about, the main one or the one from the leader of your group?
The one that's at Masjid Namira, meaning like the imam of Hajj, the khutbah that he's making.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So as we said, right? If you're praying behind the imam, meaning which imam? The imam of Hajj. Whenever I say imam of right now, I'm referring to the imam of Hajj. Right. So when you're praying behind that imam, then you can combine between the Dhuhr and Asr. But what do most people do? Most people, they pray in their tents. Right. So then ومن صلى الظهر في رحله وحده صلى كل واحدة منهما في وقتها عند أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. وقال أبو يوسف محمد رحمه الله يجمع بينهما المنفرد. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, he says that if you are praying in your, if you're praying separately, meaning not behind the main imam, if you're praying separately, then you will pray Dhuhr separately and you'll pray Asr separately. Okay? So even in that place, Imam Abu Hanifa says you will not combine. Imam Muhammad and Imam Abu Yusuf, they say you should still combine. This is according to the Hanafi position, right? Shafi'is, they of course, they definitely combine, right? We're talking about the Hanafi position, right? Hanafis, Imam Sahib says that you should not combine. Sahibain say, yes, you can still combine. But the more correct opinion is Imam Sahib's opinion, that you should not combine, pray separately. Okay? Pray separately, and if you're not praying behind the main Imam, if you're praying behind the main Imam, then yes, you can pray Dhuhr and Asr together. But if you are praying in your tents behind a separate Imam, understand, separate Imam, meaning a different, not the main Imam of Hajj. You're praying behind another Imam. Let's say you're praying behind me, for example. In that case, ideally, you should pray Dhuhr and Asr separately in its own time. Understand? Questions? Yes.
Will there be loudspeakers?
Yes, there are loudspeakers everywhere. Yes.
We can pray from the tent, we can follow. or the option is like we can have local?
Our scholars say you should not follow from the tents because there's no ittisal sufuf, meaning the rows are not connected. If you're in your tent, the actual mountain of Arafah is like so far away. The actual masjid is so far away. So there's so much gap between you and them. So if you're in your tents, you should not follow behind the main imam. Okay. Instead, you make your own jamaat. You can pray Dhuhr in its time. You can pray Asr. Again, you're there. You're not doing anything else. That's your entire purpose. You're there specifically for that reason. So make sure you're. By the way, as a reminder, make sure you are well rested, like seriously well rested, the night before, because you don't want it to be. Because this happens. This happens to I've seen it happens all the time, right? That some people they fall asleep while they're there, right? Sometimes during the time of Arafah, meaning that between Dhuhr and Maghrib, some people fall asleep at that time because you're exhausted. Your body gives up essentially, right? So make sure you sleep the night before. Even if you're in Mina, try to sleep as much as you can. Obviously it's exciting. Maybe you're like, oh man, this is a new place and all that. But please try to sleep. Make sure you get your rest in. Get a few hours of sleep in. If you need coffee, whatever you need, make sure you stay awake. And it's generally accessible. You have coffee, you have food, everything is accessible there. They give you all of that food, whatever you need, they'll give it to you. Right? So make sure you're well rested the days before Hajj, at least the night before also, especially the 8th night, leading into the 9th, meaning the night before Arafah. Make sure you are well rested because the next night is where? Is Muzdalifah. So which we're talking about now. ثم يتوجه إلى الموقف فيقف بقرب الجبل. So he's saying that here he's saying that you should go towards the area where you should stand, and then you should go as close as possible to the what do you call it? The mountain of Arafah. That's the best if you can, right? وعرفات كلها موقف إلا بطن عرنة. And so he says that Arafat, all of it is the mawqif, meaning all of it, as I said, where the boundaries are, all of it is considered the area where you can stay, except for one specific place, which is you don't have to worry about it. Generally, they have boundaries around it, but you don't have to worry about it. وينبغي للإمام أن يقف بعرفة على راحلته ويدعو ويعلم الناس المناسك. Right? So it's recommended for the Imam of Hajj, to stand in Arafah. Now, again, as I mentioned, you should stand because Nabi Sallallahu he stood, right? And you can stand on your conveyance so that people can see you, right? You can stand even on that high. If you can, stand that high, right? But of course, nowadays you have like, members and all these other things, right? But essentially stand in a high place and make a lot of dua and the Imam should teach the people how to make dua and how to perform Hajj. Now, on the day of Arafah, you can do so many different things, right? For example, last year, what we did with Mufti Abdurrahman Mangera, what we did was we did a maqra of Al-Hizb Al-Azam. We did a maqra of that book. So it's good, mashallah. Or you can make dua the entire time. You can recite the Quran. You can do dhikr, whatever you want during that time, do it. But stay engaged in dua, adhkar, Quran, and so on. That's the most crucial time. Those few hours, whatever, how many hours those are, that's the most important time. So spend a lot of that time making dua. So for example, either make a list because you get tired, right? You can switch around, make dua, then you can recite Quran, then you can pray salah, then you can, switch things around because you may get tired, or you will get tired. So, even the maqra also, it's also good to participate, for example. But anything is good. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So, as I said, you should raise your hands towards the sky. He also raises his hands towards the sky, and it's mentioned like a person who's begging for food. Similarly, like a miskeen, you should also stand. Right? And you do your adhkar, do all of your adhkar, send salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You ask Allah Ta'ala, beg Allah Ta'ala. That's the time that du'as are accepted. ويستحب أن يغتسل قبل الوقوف بعرفة. It's recommended to do ghusl before you do وقوف عرفة. وَاجْتَهِدُوا فِي الدُّعَاء. Also, you increase and you push yourself to make a lot of dua, right? Of course, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made a lot of dua there. Also, it's recommended that we make a lot of dua. And it's sunnah to actually make your du'as silently. Again, it's sunnah to make your du'as silently, not loudly. Why? Because there's so many people that make dua so loudly and so on, and they're disturbing other people. Even in Umrah and Tawaf, and I said this so many times. So many people, they make dua like this, it's not recommended. Rather, you make dua silently and to yourself, and that's the best. Okay? فَإِذَا غَرَبَتِ الشَّمْسِ. Now, the same day, this is all on the 9th, right? 9th day, once Maghrib comes in, أفاض الإمام والناس معه على حينتهم حتى يأتوا المزدلفة. And then from Arafah, the people, they will travel and they'll go to Muzdalifah. Now, ideally, go with the bus. It's nighttime. You don't want to get lost. You don't want things to happen. Stay with the group. Go with the bus. فينزلوا بها. You go to Arafah. You go to Muzdalifah and you'll stay in Muzdalifah. Muzdalifah is amazing, right? Muzdalifah is just an empty, open sky, open, for those of you who are very comfortable in your beds and so on, this may be difficult for you, right? You're laying on top of rocks. They put down one, not these nice carpets. They put down a regular carpet, and then they give you a sleeping bag. So you have your sleeping bag. You put your sleeping bag on top of it, and you sleep just like that. You'll get maybe 3 hours. If you have 3 hours sleep, you're very lucky. 3 hours sleep is like very good, because you get there after Maghrib. You have to pray Maghrib and Isha there. He's going to mention. We'll mention, right? That you're going to pray Maghrib and Isha there, and you're going to be exhausted, but there's no space. You have to go search all the way around. If you have to use a bathroom, then you have to use a bathroom. Ideally, use the bathroom before you go to Muzdalifah. Because if you think Mina bathrooms are bad, Muzdalifah bathrooms are worse, right? It's harder. And my recommendation is, don't go to the one that's in the center. There's one, I remember, one bathroom right in the center. Everybody was going there. But one of the brothers, he told me, he said, go to that bathroom over there. Because the line in the center bathroom was out the door. Meaning, when I say out the door, I mean like all the way out, right? Like multiple rounds. So it was so long. And then one of the brothers, he was saying, listen, go to that bathroom over there. You walk like 10 minutes, or not 10 minutes, 5 minutes maybe. You walk 5 minutes, and you go to that bathroom. You save yourself 1 hour. Because you're waiting 1 hour to go to the bathroom. There, you get it immediately. There were no lines there. Anyways, والمستحب أن ينزلوا بقرب الجبل الذي عليه الميقدة يقال خزع. Right? It's recommended to stay near this area. It's called Khuzah. It's fine if you don't stay there. It's okay. Anywhere in Muzdalifah, the boundaries there, it's fine. So you're going to spend the night there. ويصلي الإمام بالناس المغرب والعشاء في وقت العشاء بأذان وإقامة. The Imam, he will lead the people in Maghrib and Isha in the time of Isha with one adhan, one iqamah. So in the previous one adhan, two iqamah. Here, one adhan, one iqamah. Meaning you will not delay between Maghrib and Isha. Right? And so generally, you're coming, whatever time you're coming, you don't need to follow no Imam. Wait for Isha time, pray with a couple of people, just pray together and move on. You don't have time. Like, just pray with as many people as you can and just have your salah. People are just like, very like, by that point, people are exhausted, people are irritated. So just try to be nice and try to pray with as many people as you can. There's no sunnah, no nafil between Maghrib and Isha. You just pray your 3 rakat sunnah, 3 rakat fard, and then you move on. You pray Isha. Okay. ومن صلى المغرب في الطريق لم يجوز عند أبي حنيفة ومحمد رحمه الله. Right? If you pray Maghrib in the road, your salah is not valid. You cannot pray Maghrib on the way. You have to pray Maghrib and Isha together in Muzdalifah. Okay. فإذا طلع الفجر صلى الإمام بالناس الفجر بغلس. And then the next day, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, and this is the 3rd day of Hajj, right? 8th was 1st, 9th is 2nd. The 3rd, technically, day of Hajj is the 10th. And on this 10th day, we're going to start from here again, inshallah, where you'll go and the Imam will pray immediately as soon as the time of Fajr comes in. And then you leave and you'll go after that. ثم وقف الإمام ووقف الناس معه فدعا, right? Okay, let me just finish this off. He said, the Imam and the people, they will stay together in Muzdalifah and they'll make a lot of dua to Allah Ta'ala. Right? This is before Fajr. والمزدلفة كلها موقف إلا بطن محسن. Right? The entire Muzdalifah you can stay in is not an issue. Okay? And we'll stop here. Inshallah, this is until the 9th day. You end off 9th day, you go to sleep 9th. Then 10th morning for Fajr, you are at Muzdalifah. You pray Muzdalifah earliest. As soon as the adhan goes off, you'll see like people are just making their own jamaats. You can make your own jamaat or you can follow follow one of the bigger jamaats or something, you know. But if because it's unlikely you'll be able to gather behind the actual main imam. You'll not be able to gather behind him. So just have a small jamaat, for example, and then we're going to go on to Mina and do Ramil Jamarat 10th, which is also a very, very important day as well. So we'll stop here, inshallah, and then we'll continue next week, inshallah. Any questions before we stop? Yes.
Going back to the topic of combining Dhuhr and Asr,
Yes.
you were told it's almost mandatory to combine Dhuhr and Asr to follow the Sunnah. Just like we were mandated to combine Maghrib and Isha in Isha time, right? So, but what I heard today is a little bit different. So if
Yeah.
we did combine it behind the Imam of the tent, then what is the ruling now?
Meaning the Imam of the tent, right?
Yes.
That's okay. As I said, there is a difference of opinion, right? As you saw, Imam Muhammad and Imam Abu Yusuf, they say that no, you should still combine. So technically, I mean, there is a difference of opinion. As I said, the better thing to do is pray separately. If you're not praying behind the main Imam, it's better to pray separately. But even if you are in your tents and you do decide to do Jama' bain as-salatain, technically it's okay.
That's the only time within Zohar time you can combine Asr, right? In this topic you mentioned, usually you try to combine end of Dhuhr and early of Asr, right? But this is an exception in Arafat. Right?
Yeah. Meaning according to our scholars, yes. Generally, we do not combine Salah, only in Hajj. Any other questions?
For the transportation, like you mentioned about Mina Dona, but we have to reach in time, right? So is there a transit, like millions of people reaching at the same time?
Most people, they're able to make it. I mean, not most, everybody's able to, everybody makes it, mashallah. Everybody makes it, mashallah. Somehow or the other, they make it. Everybody's going to the same place. It's not that far either. It's doable, right? It is doable. You can travel that distance.
So like, when we go with our spouses, they, like Muzdalifah, Arafah, do they have a separate section for ladies?
So in Muzdalifah, no. Muzdalifah, you know, men and women are everywhere. Right? They do have certain areas where women are sleeping and certain areas where men are sleeping, but everybody's in the same area, right? As for Mina, yes, in the sense that, for example, let's say you have, in the past, it was like different where they had entire separate areas. Now what they've done is they have tents. For example, let's say all of these tents are for men, and then the next row over, meaning obviously there's like a gap, and all of those tents are for women. So they're right next to each other now.
One more sidebar question. This is